Have you calmed down from that shock yet? Because I'm still in awe. I'm still very surprised that Ferrari actually won at Singapore, a track where they had no hope. Everybody wrote them off. Everybody didn't. Nobody stood them, gave them a glimmer of hope of even winning that Grand Prix. So now that's Ferrari's third win in a row. They've done that. Well, they've done that for the first time since 2008. Well, at the very start of the 2008 F1 season, and in that year, they actually won the constructors for the last time, as to date, of course. So really, the question of the episode, as you can see by the title, is is Ferrari back? Ferrari have had a really tough start to 2019, as we all know. Pre-season went so well for them. They were doing so well, so quick. They were so powerful. We knew how powerful that car was. We just didn't really see how poor the chassis was, because like Mercedes kind of sandbagged a bit. They didn't show their true pace of the car up until FP1 in Melbourne, and then as the time went on, we kind of realised, oh God, Ferrari are quite bad. And then it got to a point where even Red Bull were faster than Ferrari. They won. They won two races before Ferrari even had a sniff of one, which was quite surprising. So Ferrari have had a really topsy-turvy first half of the year, didn't they? But Leclerc's incident where he had lost power, losing the win at Bahrain, then Vettel spinning, Vettel's incident in Canada, then the incident at Silverstone when Vettel went into the back of Max Verstappen, and even at little glimpses of the second half of the year for Sebastian Vettel when he spun, rejoined the track in an unsafe manner, almost taking Lance Stroll off the circuit, which he kind of did, but not as catastrophic as what we thought it was going to be. So Ferrari are on the up at the moment, aren't they? As like I said, Singapore, no one gave them a glimmer of hope of winning that race. And even doing so, they actually got a 1-2. And even better than that, they got the perfect strategy in place. The right strategy, but in the wrong way, if you know what I mean. They kind of accidentally put Sebastian Vettel ahead of Charles Leclerc, which was a bit of a shock at the time. That, oh God, like Vettel's actually going to win this race over Leclerc, because everyone thought Leclerc was going to win the race at the time. So, yes, coming into Russia, Mercedes territory, can Ferrari cause an upset? Absolutely, of course they can. The car is looking better than ever. 2018 essence, I would say. 2018, they had a really good car last year. Didn't work out for them, unfortunately. Mercedes kind of overtook them. However, this season, it's like an opposite effect. Mercedes would start the year a little bit on the back foot. Ferrari would be on top. And then by the second half of the year, Mercedes would be on top and Ferrari would be lagging behind. Now, all of a sudden, Mercedes start the year off brilliantly. Now, Ferrari, in the second half of the year, all of a sudden are now ahead, and Mercedes are lagging behind. Why? Why is all of a sudden Mercedes miles behind, or in a way, miles behind over Ferrari? Well, one of the reasons why Ferrari came into Singapore and kind of, well, won the Grand Prix, got pole position and won the Grand Prix, was because they made some really significant upgrades to their car. Now, they changed little components on their front wing. They had little components change on their floor, just to allow better airflow, more downforce on the front of the car and underneath the car. Again, Singapore, it's a track where downforce is critical, hence why we kind of wrote Ferrari off quite a lot. So they made some really significant changes to their car for that race, which then allowed them to go on to win the race. So like, again, Ferrari's upgrades this year, that they've trial and tested them at a few events at tracks where like downforce is essential, like Australia being one of them, Spain, again another one, Monaco, at tracks where they just weren't anywhere. Then they had a few they trialed these components a little bit in practices throughout the course of the year, let's say in France, in Britain, even some in Hungary, and now they certainly are paying off. So really, the progress of Ferrari hasn't really happened overnight. It's like a long-term project that's actually shown the effect of it now. It's like, right, Ferrari's time and effort, it's starting to pay off. So can Ferrari go on throughout the rest of the season? Maybe not so much put a challenge to Mercedes in the championship, because let's face it, Mercedes have more or less wrapped up both championships. Not guaranteed yet. I know there's still like 125 points to play for in the drivers, and Mercedes have a massive 133 point lead over their nearest rivals, Ferrari. More or less the championships are wrapped up. But can Ferrari continue this form and continuously beat Mercedes till the end of the season? Lyle, bring you into this one for the first time. What's your opinions on Ferrari at the moment? Do you think that they can continue this surge of form and still put the challenge to Mercedes on a consistent level throughout now to the end of the season? Or do you think that this is the best we've seen of Ferrari and Mercedes will kind of take over from Russia onwards till the end of the season?
I don't think that Ferrari are trying to beat Mercedes in a way. The constructors is already wrapped up almost. The drivers is almost wrapped up. They could have even taken it this weekend in Sochi. Obviously, because of the result in Singapore with the 1-2 from Ferrari, it's going to be delayed another race or so. I've got a feeling it might be Suzuka where Mercedes lift the constructors, but I'm not too sure. I don't think they're really bothered about bringing the fight to Mercedes this season, but of course next season. Again, they will won't think that this year's testing. They'll be looking more towards the two drivers that they have. Sebastian Vettel and Charles Leclerc, getting the best results for them. Getting the best results for the team, and kind of shaking off the woes that they had this season. So as you were saying, Jordan, the one for me, the biggest one, so Bahrain was very unfortunate, but that has happened to the best of drivers, where problems have happened to the car. It just was very unfortunate that it was Charles Leclerc, the youngest pole sitter, I think it was for Ferrari, second youngest in history. It was going on to be a first win for him in this team that he made a very reluctant move to go to, so it was incredible. That one was, as I say, that wasn't really a Ferrari heartbreak. The one to get me was, of course, Canada. Sebastian Vettel, who still claims that he won the race, was very much hurt by the stewards, and really it was the stewards' fault that he didn't win the race. The problems that they had throughout the week, throughout the first part of the season, and when I say problems, I just mean like the heartbreak and the agony of watching teams like Red Bull Race and Honda, who they would have expected to almost cream this year. Honda are the team who were with McLaren in 20. Come on, it's McLaren. You know how badly they were with them. Obviously, Red Bull will still be on the run. But Ferrari, being Ferrari, would have obviously expected to beat Red Bull to bring the fight to Mercedes, and of course that hasn't happened. Mercedes were obviously going to win, and when Red Bull won, I think, so after Canada, after Vettel was robbed of the win, after Leclerc's misfortune, after the car was just to not be on pace, to start the season quite strongly and then just to fall off the dominance, and also watch teams like Red Bull race and win, Ferrari was scratching their head thinking, what are we doing anymore? This amazing team that we have, the Italian fire, the tradition, the Scarlet Red is going from Formula One now. What we have to do to bring it back. I don't know what they did over the season break, to get the car back to winning ways. The wins that they had, the back-to-back, the three in the row, the win in Belgium, absolutely incredible, especially after what had happened in the weekend, obviously with Charles Leclerc's friend Antoine Hubert, but definitely great for him. Monza, best win for them, first time in 9 years, 9 or 10 years that they'd won. Obviously last time was Fernando Alonso in 2010, and then obviously Singapore, which as John said, no one expected them to do that. Russia, not sure what they'll do, but that's the thing, maybe not knowing is the best thing. We just said there about Singapore, we didn't expect them to win, so maybe that'll push them to win even more. They won't expect to be battling Mercedes, but they're definitely just thinking about themselves. So Binotto is thinking, how can I help my two drivers get the best results that they can? So, for example, Charles Leclerc, a few races ago, he was in 5th position in the World Championship. Now he's in 3rd place. He's joined with Max Verstappen, but he's technically in 3rd. And he's only 31 points behind Valtteri Bottas in 2nd place. And in my opinion, to go for him, before Belgium he was in 5th, basically after Japan almost, he could be in 2nd place, depending on how he goes and obviously how Valtteri does as well. But it's crazy to go from 5th to 3rd as he is now, and possibly 2nd. Sebastian Vettel as well, it's been a long road for him since his last win, obviously 392 days since he last won in Belgium. Great to see him win in Singapore. Again, the team will have wanted to give Sebastian the win. Yes, of course, it was kind of helped by the team. The strategy to pit Sebastian Vettel before Charles obviously did work for him. They got the strategy right. They decided to give it to Sebastian, who needed that win, who needed that boost in the team. They were definitely thinking of the drivers on that side, but they're not thinking about Mercedes. I think they're just trying to get the best results for themselves. And I think they are doing that. So let's say that they go out and win in Russia, or let's say that they win in Japan or the US or whatever race, even just one race that we'll have left. They'll be doing that. The one thing about the one thing about any of the other teams, the one thing about Mercedes, they'll obviously be looking at Red Bull and where Red Bull's probably the only team that can win as well as them. They'll be looking at Red Bull, but they won't really care. They won't care about Hamilton or Bottas or Verstappen. They'll just be thinking about themselves, trying to get the best out of those two drivers for this year, especially building Sebastian's confidence up again for next year. Keeping the form on for Charles, but also kind of using this year as a testing ground or a good springboard for the 2019 season when it all resets in Australia and they could possibly take the fight to Mercedes then. But they know that it's not in their hands anymore this year, and maybe that was a problem, Jordan. Maybe that's why they did so many mistakes in the first part of the season, because Mercedes were extending the gap. And maybe Ferrari did think that they could still be fighting Mercedes, and obviously all that pressure that they were putting on themselves. For example, in the pit stops, we all know how elegant Mercedes were, and we all know how bad Ferrari were. When Ferrari were going in for pit stops, I was holding my breath because I knew that there was going to be a wheel gun problem or something where Ferrari were just going to choke under this pressure. So maybe that was a problem for Ferrari in the first part of the season. They still thought that they were in with a fighting chance of Mercedes, but instead of fighting Mercedes, they ended up falling behind and also falling behind Red Bull. As we've just said there, Verstappen took 2 wins when Ferrari didn't have any. But now that they've come around the second part of the season, when they've forgotten about Mercedes, to be honest, they've kind of forgotten about Red Bull as well, and they're just driving for themselves. They're driving for themselves and getting the best out of those two drivers and the team alone. And I think that's really helped Ferrari's confidence going forward to this week and obviously the rest of the season. And again, if they want to bring the fight to Mercedes, starting 2019 for next season? I'm in 2020 for next season. Starting 2020 for next season, when the board resets, and you never know, they can bring the fight. But I think that they're just winning and they're doing what they can for themselves, and that's what's driving Ferrari to become stronger.
I think as well, like it's frustrating that Ferrari are now on the ball, or well, more or less now, because we expected them to be there or thereabouts at the very start of the year. We were like, right, okay, first 2 years we wanted a Hamilton-Vettel battle right to the very end. We didn't get that. In pre-season testing, we were like, this is actually looking like we might get it. Ferrari are showing true pace. The Mercedes car, everyone knew they were sandbagging. Everybody knew that. So again, everyone was very excited. And as I said earlier in the year, we were all disappointed, and I think that's why we were like frustrated at Formula One. We haven't had a bad race since the French Grand Prix, and that was when things got really bad. That was probably one of the worst Grand Prix I've ever seen, probably since following Formula One. It was a terrible Grand Prix. Since the Austrian Grand Prix, it's been amazing. We've had everything you could want in a race, and it's like. I'm like frustrated now that Ferrari have got the act together. But I even said this before the summer break. I even said Ferrari would kick off the next season running. That was just a bit of a guess. But I will also be thinking it's too little too late. It is too little too late. And Ferrari, I would probably agree with you there, Lyle. Ferrari won't be concentrating on bringing the fight to Mercedes. They're just trying to claw back the reputation that they lost at the start of the year. It's like redemption for them, trying to win these races, especially for Sebastian Vettel, because everyone had him on as retirement. Everyone was like, get out of Formula One. You don't care anymore. You're not even bothered. Vettel kind of fought back against that and said, no, I do care. I am bothered. It's just when you go through these stages, everything goes against you. You feel negative. You feel sad, upset, depressed, or whatever. And then all of a sudden you win a Grand Prix, have a weekend you did like he did in Singapore. Everything changes. I think Ferrari didn't intentionally want Vettel to win the Grand Prix. It's just that I think they felt like they had to pit Vettel first in order to cover off Hamilton, which then Mercedes kind of played their own game. They should have really pitted Hamilton at the same time as Leclerc, or even in the following lap. Therefore, the results could have been a bit different. But I also said this as well at the start of the year. Mercedes will get their strategy wrong, and they have done. They got it completely wrong in Singapore, which is a very rare occasion. Which I think in Russia, the next time round, they will be aware, right, okay, we do not want to do that again. And then Ferrari will, might be on the back foot again. They might come into Russia and be absolutely awful. They could be the third fastest team at Russia, which we could have been thinking about, or we could have predicted that if our predictions of like Red Bull and Mercedes being the fastest had it came true in Singapore, we could have been like, this topic wouldn't have even been about if Ferrari hadn't won them 3 races. In Spa and Monza, they were expected to win. And even then, we doubted it. We actually doubted it. Well, some people did anyway, because as to how poor Ferrari were. Mercedes' car was pretty good. Ferrari had the more power, but that's not really everything, is it? It's not all about, as like I said, it's not all about power. And Mercedes probably would have had, power upgrades on their engine coming into them two races, because they knew how poor Ferrari were, and they knew that, well, we've got the facilities to go off and gain an extra 20 horsepower on our enemies, which that they have done before. But then Ferrari did what they had to do. They won them two races. But then that gave them the confidence to go on into Singapore and go, well, why can't we win it again? Bonotto said in the media as well that it's not just down to these upgrades why Ferrari were doing so well. It's other things as well. It's the package, it's the chassis, it's the team, it's the drivers. Once a driver wins the Grand Prix, their morale goes from like nothing to sky high. They're on cloud nine. That's what happened with Leclerc. Leclerc had a alright kind of start of the year. He got a couple of pole positions. So once he won that Grand Prix, bam, straight away another race win. And they weren't easy race wins. No way, no, they weren't easy at all. And Singapore was gonna look like that wasn't gonna be another easy one either. And then the way things panned out as well it wasn't the case. But like, I have been impressed with Ferrari now coming into this weekend as well. What's going to happen, where they're going to be. And like, again, I think Toto Wolff also said as well that it's probably down to the drivers as well. The drivers' morale, the drivers' confidence are now up, that they are in a car that they can trust, and that's why Ferrari are doing so well. But really, Toto Wolff knows they aren't really a threat in terms of the championship. But I want to look on for next year. Now, Ferrari are putting a lot of time and effort into their car at this present time to, again, what I said before, redemption, redeem what they lost at the start of the year. Mercedes have kind of fell off the pace a bit. They haven't won a race since Hungary. The stats go by pole position wise is that they've got one in the last 7 races and none in the last 4 races. I think I'm right with that one. Which, again, just shows why is Mercedes all of a sudden way off the pace? Have Mercedes taken their foot off the gas just a little bit? I don't think so. I think Ferrari generally have got more just have got a much better car. But I think also as well, Mercedes will have one eye on 2020. Maybe not developing the car as fast as what Ferrari are doing this year. And I think next season it might hinder Ferrari a little bit. So, Lyle, do you think that the progress Ferrari are making now will hurt them next year? Because it seems like the development of the car, for this year, just to try and, get some results on the board, which is fine. But then also, this is the time of year when you're designing the chassis, you're designing everything for next year's car, which do you think that'll hurt Ferrari? Looking at this year's car too much and not so much next year's car? Or do you think that, right, they will have one eye on this car, but also have even more eyes on next year's car and just taking what they learned from this one into the one for next season?
Well, you never really know, what the work is behind the scenes. In Maranello, they're probably working behind the scenes at next year's car. But again, like I said before, about the testing for next year, they're working on the drivers, they're working on the cars to get the results. I'm not saying that they're going to have a strong season next year. It'd probably just be about the same. But we're still in the season. We're in the last third, but we're still in the middle of the season. There's still over 150 points still left to play for. This season alone. On some big races. I think they'll be focusing on them. And to be honest, 3 on the bounce that they've just had. That's massive for the team. Obviously, the first 1-2 that they had since Hungary 2017, 392 days since Sebastian Vettel's last win, and Charles Leclerc's second win. His third consecutive podium with Ferrari. So all the factors will go. They're looking at this season. I don't think that's going to hinder them. To be honest, that's one of the things as fans we kind of get annoyed at. When we hear that these teams are looking at next year's car, because it's like, well, what about this car? What about the car that we'll have on track? I think they're just pushing on to try and get the best result out of this season, but they'll still want to have a good, strong season next year. The thing is with Ferrari. It's kind of one extreme to the other. Some seasons like 2017, they started off so strong, and then they died off towards the end. That the car started to it didn't improve. Other teams caught up. But then this year it's kind of started on the other way. But as I said, that was probably because we were looking at the pressure of Mercedes. They didn't have a great start of the season in terms of the car. but then now they really are. But as I say, it's not really. I don't think it's all about the improvements that the car's brought, all the upgrades and things like that. I think it's just the better, the team. Sebastian Vettel, he's got his. I want to say, he's got his mentality back, but as you were saying, it's negative every time you lose a race. This time he's won a race. He's now the most successful driver in Singapore. Again, that's something that Lewis Hamilton hasn't got. So he's beaten Lewis Hamilton on that. He's back in the World Championship fight. Obviously not to win, of course, but he's still back there to hopefully catch Charles Leclerc, because when Charles overtook him, which was after the Belgian Grand Prix, he will obviously have felt like, well, I'm now definitely the second driver in Ferrari. It's not like my teammate's just doing better than us. I am now the second driver because I'm now behind him in the World Championship, which obviously I was ahead of him until Belgium, which was round 13. So it's, it was massive for Sebastian to lose that, to spin in Italy when his teammate was winning, to do the thing that really Seb should have done himself. To be on the podium after 10 years after Fernando Alonso was the last person to do it. Sebastian would have loved, and he probably dreamt about it every night, to be on top of the podium, on the top step of the podium in front of the Tifosi. He would have wanted to do that. Instead, it was his teammate Charles. So he needed that win. He's got that win. He's now the most successful driver at Singapore. He's got his mojo back. So has Charles as well. You were saying about Charles Leclerc now winning. He definitely got his mojo back after what had gone on throughout the season. One win just set him off into this really kind of reluctant, very strong going for him. And he's fastly becoming a driver who is in massive contention to become driver of the year for us as well in Formula One. And I'm really impressed about him, getting that back, and the team's doing an amazing job. But they're just focusing on every race as it comes, to be honest. Mercedes could say that they're focused on next year's car, and yes, they might think that they're taking the foot off the gas because this year's championship is already wrapped up. But to be honest, that's a bad way of looking at it, because they're still in contention for race wins and things like that. But I think just take one race as it comes for Ferrari. But I do think that the drivers are making a massive push on it, and I think that's one of the big things that Matteo Binotto will want, just the confidence in the drivers, because it's confirmed lineup for next year. Charles Leclerc alongside Sebastian Vettel. It could be the final year for Sebastian Vettel next year, but after a win now so far, it could be more this year. He just wants to build the confidence for next year. So Jordan, you said about the car, you said about, are they looking for the 2020 car, but are they looking at building the 2020 drivers up probably a bit stronger than the car? Because now, as I said, they've got they've got wins for Leclerc, they've got wins for Sebastian, they've got the first 1-2 since over 2 years absent in Formula One. Will they just be looking at building the drivers up for next year as well as obviously the car? Because the drivers' confidence and, basically coming off Singapore, they'll both be on cloud 9. And Matteo Binotto will want to carry that into Russia and Japan and onwards, but would love to carry it into 2020. Do you think that it's important that they work on the 2020 drivers as well as the car?
I think, as those two drivers having a year together, it certainly would have allowed them to gel and understand one another as well. And I think next year they will probably be even stronger. They'll be even closer friends. They would have have more understanding of the team. Well, more Leclerc than Sebastian Vettel, because Vettel's been there for a number of years, 5-6 years now. Leclerc's only been there is only 1 year. He hasn't even had a full season at the team yet, but he's getting the experience at Ferrari, understanding how the team works, how the team want him to work, as well as him working with the team. I think Binotto certainly will be working with the team, working with the drivers a lot again for the future, because certainly they will want to put a bit of a fight in the championship in both the drivers and the constructors. Leclerc's never really had a proper challenge for the title. Of course, he hasn't been in the sport for near enough 2 full seasons yet. And there's every single chance he can get second in the World Drivers' Championship. He's only as you said, Lyle. He's only 31 points behind Bottas. That's like a race win in fourth, fifth place, if you like. And if Bottas's results go against him, which they have done, which I'll talk about in a little bit in terms of the standards as to what they could have been, if the season had started at a certain point. But certainly the first year might have been a bit of a rocky situation, if you like. If Ferrari were competitive from the word go, maybe we might have a different outcome. But for me, Leclerc this season has certainly showed maturity. He's been a very good citizen to Ferrari. I mean, the messages he was putting out in Singapore I thought were like amazing. Again, he was so frustrated, so angry that he was going to lose the Grand Prix to his teammate by by strategy. And again, the this again that will happen to that will happen to Leclerc again in the future, because it's happened to the best of drivers. For example, Lewis Hamilton, the most famous one being Monaco 2015, when he got screwed over massively in the pit stops. Which again, Leclerc, that will happen to him again. But certainly, I think Leclerc as well for next season, like he's got that World Championship, mentality in him. But again, like the same question I kind of go with Max Verstappen is, how will he cope during a fight in the World Drivers' Championship as like against other drivers? The pressure, having to deliver every single week at your very best to try and keep up to become world champion. Max, we hasn't been there before. How is he going to do? And of course, Charles hasn't been there neither. So Charles might go into a championship fight and just crumble all of a sudden. So Ferrari will want to work with him on that, just in case that he does have, if he does have a good chance next season to become, well, or at least try to become world champion. But I'm just going to quickly talk to you guys about some like the standings in the first 5 races of the season, to then compare them to the last 5 races we've had this season. And I got these stats, by the way, from WTF1. They posted there this stat as like picture form, which I thought was really interesting, and it kind of relates to what we're talking about today. So the first the standings, well, the first 5 standings anyways, the first 5 places after the first 5 rounds up until the Spanish Grand Prix. You had Hamilton was obviously leading on 112 points. Bottas was second on 105. Verstappen was third on 66 points. Vettel was fourth on 64 points. And Leclerc was fifth on 55 points. So Mercedes had both got 217 points, and Ferrari had got 119 points. And that already is nearly 100 points deficit behind their championship rivals, which again just proves how poor Ferrari were at the start of the season and how strong Mercedes was. But then if you look back at the second half of the season, I think this is from the German Grand Prix onwards. The last 5 races, you have Leclerc would be on top on 80 points if the championship had started at that given point. Hamilton would have been second on 73. Vettel would have been on third on 71. Verstappen at fourth on 64 points. And Bottas would have been fifth on 47 points, which shows how badly Bottas has fallen off the pace, in recent races. But we're not here to talk about Bottas. So Ferrari would have conjured up 151 points in the constructor standings, and Mercedes would have only got 120 points. So obviously Ferrari are the most informed team at the moment. They've got way more points than Mercedes in the last 5 races. They've got way more points than anybody else. And again, in the last probably 5, even 4 races. And how tight, how good does that championship fight sound if Ferrari were good from the word go? So frustrating as well, isn't it? Really, really annoyed at that. So yes, that's what the standards would be like. So I want to again just quickly discuss about Sebastian Vettel, because Vettel drove superbly in Singapore. We know that he won the Grand Prix brilliantly. Yes, luck was on his side, but he took it. He didn't make any mistakes, which he has done it this season. A lot of people are saying that this is the turning point in Vettel's season, because everyone was like, he was never the same since that incident in Germany. Yes, he won the Grand Prix in Belgium a few races later, but he's never really been the same driver since that incident, is what people say, when he went off the lead, when he was winning the Grand Prix at his home race in Germany. And then he's made all sorts of mistakes, hasn't he? He had a string of mistakes at the end of last season. He's had a string of mistakes this season, and he had a big mistake, another spin in the previous round in Italy. Again, the team's home race where they are expected to deliver. He made a mistake once again. But okay, let's say he doesn't win the World Championship. In my view, I think he'll go to Red Bull. This is just my early predictions. I generally think he'll go to Red Bull. Because it hasn't worked out for Ferrari. Because one race isn't going to change anything for Vettel. I know I don't want people to be all of a sudden jumping on the bandwagon about Vettel. He drove superbly in Singapore, brilliant. But just think about all the mistakes he's had. He's had 1 win this season, 1 win in how many odd days, 396 days it'll be now, or 397 days or whatever. It's not good. In terms, if you look at the overall stats, it's not really that good on Vettel's kind of form. and you might go into Russia and go completely back to square one. But also at the same time, you could also go to Russia and win 2 in a row. Then all of a sudden, oh, we've got Vettel back, and then he might go next season and then go forth and win a championship. But you know, Vettel's probably at the peak of his career, and he's only going to get like probably slower and slower. His reactions are going to be like a lot slower. He's going to get like obviously he's going to get older and stuff, to the point of where he's not going to have any like motivation or whatever to go off to win another championship. He might retire early and sit back and do something else, or he might stay in the sport and just play second fiddle and like assist a team rather than just being like the young gun. All right, I want to be the world champion. Just go right. I'm going to help, you know, drivers win a world championship. Just kind of like, I'm not bothered about my own title fight. I would sacrifice my race for my teammate, which he has done before. He started to do that a lot more often, which in his Red Bull days, I could never imagine him doing that. A bit like what Kimi Räikkönen's doing. So I think for me, 2020, even if Vettel doesn't win the world championship next season, or even if he does, let's say, if he does, I don't know what his options would be. But in my view, he won't. And I think he'll go back to Red Bull, and then the trio effect that I've got predicted will take place. So the title of this video is Ferrari back? So are Ferrari back? Oh yeah, but I would say that they aren't back yet. That's the key word in my point. Not yet. Just give them time. They're on a good run of form. Mercedes could dominate the next part of the season. The rest of the season, who knows? Next season, it's going to be a key one. Hopefully, that they will continue this form on into next season. But anyways, guys, this is where I'm going to wrap up this video. Thank you very much for watching as well. If you're new around here, then please like and subscribe as well. Nearly on the road to 1,000. Comment for that. Go and check out our videos for the rest of the weekend. And until next time, we'll see you later.